For all the wonders you done for us all, spreading the culture all over the world. For all the good things that you done for God, that's why we thanking you. We thanking you, brother. Trip, trip.
Spécial, bonjour pour tout le monde, à tout que la Dominique et on sentit, c'est un grand plaisir, à rassurer tout le monde bien, j'en dis là. C'est un grand jour à Dominique, messieurs, mesdames, c'est vendredi, c'est mon fan, thank God it's Friday, où j'ai connaître, messieurs. Et puis, le monde déjà en ville là, ça fait yo, comme toujours, comme d'habitude, mercantile, community, comme toujours, tous les vendredis, tous les fins, mois là, toujours occupé, toujours pressé, tout le monde pressé qu'a fait ça fait yo. Nous avons un spécial bonjour pour tout le monde, à tout le la Dominique qui est là avec nous. C'est un grand plaisir. Quand nous promettons notre semaine passée, nous avons un grand invité là et puis nous allons continuer à parler avec lui dans la communauté Maho. Et puis nous allons là avec ça c'est Francisco Tinko Esprit. Ça c'est un grand nom à Dominique. I call him one of the great Dominicans. Et bien, vous déjà connaissez là. Once again, good morning to you with the kind compliments of DJ Cell. We want to welcome you to another Creole Heartbeat program, and we also want to welcome our Facebook page viewers. We are also live on Facebook page, and that's the big station. That's QFM, Q95 FM Facebook page, and also our YouTube channel, Creole Heartbeat. As we get closer to the Creole season, we actually bring in the vibes as close as possible. And by the way, we're going to be discussing something very important. We're going to go way back to the African connection and the links of the Creole language. And Francisco Esprit has done quite a bit of work in really developing several, and doing some research, by the way, on the linkage between the African words and our Creole words, and why we pronounce certain words and where the origin of those particular words. So once again, good morning to you, Francisco Tinko. Ça va fait, frère.
Mon bien, président.
Tout bagaille bien?
Ouais, tout bagaille a marché.
How was the week this week?
Good.
All right.
Hard work.
Hard work as usual, I know. And for those who don't know, you are a farmer also.
Yes.
And that's your main occupation at this point in time.
Yes, in the off-season of the cruise ship business.
Mm-hmm. Because you are also part of the taxi association. That's during the months of October to April.
Yes.
Are you a part of the executive of the?
I am the immediate past president of Combine Taxi. Also, I'm a member of the Dominica Taxi Association.
How was the season last year? Because one of the things that we don't normally get is like an overview, an evaluation on how the season. But as a taxi operator, how was the season? Your assessment of the season last year? Are we looking up? Are things looking good? Are things looking up for us?
Yeah, this season was not bad. We what happened over the years, the recent years, we have had a sort of reduction in active operators. So for those operators who remain active in the business, it was a good enough year, I would say, for them.
When you say active, you mean to those who are part of the association?
Well, not everybody is part of the association. You have a number of groupings. You have the Dominica Taxi Association, of which I'm a member, and then you have as well the Combined Taxi Incorporated, which is responsible for organizing tours for persons who walk off the ship rather than taking tours sold by the ship. So we've had a good year, I would say.
Generally better than the year before?
I would say yes.
Because one recall that during the times of COVID-19, it was really stressful, a real challenge for the taxi operators.
Yes, it was. So last year was. We hope this year would be as the next season would be better, but it's getting shorter. You know, every year over the last 25 years, we lose a few days before and a few days after the season. We used to open in September and have cruise ships up to August when I started in the business. And every year we lose a few days. So now it's starting later. It's starting
which is
in October. And not really, we have about 6 calls in October. But it really starts after the 9th of November.
That's when things actually pick up.
Yeah, we have a number of calls in
and
a
go
month.
until
Yes.
April.
Until April. So we have about 20 plus calls per month between November, December, January, February, March.
And that's adequate for the members in terms of the rotation. I guess you work by a rotation system.
Yes, we have the combined taxi operator roster system. The other associations have contracts with separate tour companies. So Dominica Taxi Association does tours for Whitchurch tours. And then you have Nature Island Taxi Association have their own members that does stores and funds on and so on.
But every taxi operator or taxi operating organization is affiliated to the Discover Dominica Authority and the Tourism Department.
Yes, we have to go through the Discover
certification.
Oh yes, for this certification process. Yes, every year we have to be certified. The individual must be certified, and all the vehicles operating the system as well need to be certified.
And in terms of the information, do you get refresher courses in terms of the information as to the sites and so as a taxi operator?
Yes, occasionally we do, not every year, but we do updates, training sessions. But the guys are actively on the ground, so when they do their tours, they see if there are any improvements and if there are any new locations, we share the information about around.
But in terms of the visitor experience, what are the feedbacks? Because some of what we don't normally get, we hear how many calls and we hear all this and how many people coming in. But what are the feedbacks do we get from the tourists? You directly deal, with the tourists as an operator. What are some of the feedbacks that we are getting of our island itself and some of our sites?
Oh, we get very good reviews. Very good. They say Dominica, that's the best store they've had. A lot of persons would say that is the best they've had, because we do the rainforest stores, we do the Trafalgar Falls, Wharton Wayton, and Titu Gorge and Emerald Pool, and these stores are very attractive. And as well, most of our operators are knowledgeable of the sites and about the country, and they can give a good account of Dominica when they do the tour. So people come back, and sometimes you're concerned on the ground, and then you would ask the tourists after how was it? How did the driver perform? And they would just say, "Oh, exceedingly well."
Well, apart from, let's say, general tour sites, what are their impressions? I mean, we have the city, because I know very important personnel in the industry actually brought to my attention that we need to do some better management of the garbage situation, especially around the city.
The derelict vehicles is an issue. People just say they cannot understand why a vehicle that clearly looks to be 25 years and never moved is rotting, and it's still on the side of the road. So we get that constantly. So you have other issues as well, but that is the most important one.
The derelict vehicles.
Yes, they just hit you with that every time. I mean, a vehicle is broken down, it stays there 2-3 months, it's okay. But you have vehicles, I'm sure, that are on the side of the road before Hurricane Maria.
Wow.
And they are still there.
And some of those visitors are concerned why are these vehicles parked and appear to be there for a while.
Yes, they want to ask why. Why is that so? I mean, everything else they've done is beautiful except that. I mean, there must be a way to get these things out of the way.
So then, if in case you would have a message to send to whatever authority that's responsible for the derelict, who is actually responsible? Is it the city council?
I'm not sure who's responsible. I guess there must be some legal situation inhibiting the movement of those vehicles, because if a vehicle is parked 10 years, it's rotting and everything, there's nothing else in it again. I'm sure the owner would want somebody to take that and put that in the dump.
I know.
So you might have to find out who is the owner. Would you be able to see a number? There's no number plate on that vehicle,
which simply means that it's not moving. It's not licensed.
So maybe there needs to be some changes in the law that says if your vehicle is parked X amount of time, then it can be towed away. But then people don't usually want to suggest that, because usually the law, when it comes in, it starts very harsh. So they say if your vehicle is parked by the road for 2 days, So
I think 2 days
no, what I mean,
is
I just used an
inadequate.
extreme example.
Yeah,
but
because I
usually
think,
people do not encourage the law to do things because they usually feel they will lose out. Their vehicle might be parked a week and they can't get anybody to tow it, and then all of a sudden they lose their vehicle. So people just let the thing run. But we should be able to get rid of a vehicle that is parked for a few months by the roadside.
so, and this is actually hindering the entire industry. It gives a sort of poor image of Dominica to see several derelicts all over just parked and not moving, and it can be a health hazard also.
Yeah.
Because we know sometimes they may collect water and rodents and this other thing kind of harbor those kind of places and those kind of vehicles. So I think it is something I must try to possibly do a special program on these derelict vehicles around the city, especially if it's affecting our income in terms of tourism arrivals. It's an eyesore for our visitors. I think it is something we should take concern. As a matter of fact, we are getting a call. Let us see if we can take this call. We are getting some calls. We should take these calls. I think we should take because we are dealing with a special expert. He used to be the president of the Dominica Taxi, New Combined Taxi Association, and he's giving us some sort of concerns some of the visitors are having. Good morning to you, Creole Heartbeat. Hello, good morning. Good morning, Creole Heartbeat.
Yeah, good morning, good morning. Good program.
Thank you very much.
I would like to think maybe on the importance of the Creole language.
Well, yes, we're going to be going to the Creole language in a while.
Yeah, but it tickles my mind in terms of direct vehicle and the implication for tourism. Actually, the Little Act was enacted specifically for that purpose. To keep the country clean, keep the electric check. And there's an act that needs to be implemented, and you have several authorized people under that act: the police, village council chairman and his clerk, environmental officers. You have some roadside supervisors, those people that do public work. I think there's about 9 or 11 of them that are authorized under the act to remove those things from the environment. And we have been just there fairly royally them.
So there is an act that is responsible for derelict vehicles.
There's an act for that. And the act was specifically implemented for that purpose.
Wow.
To keep the country clean.
So
we need to get some people that to do their work. Because government paying them money. Why government paying you as an officer? And this is the act that you have to implement, and you're not doing nothing about it.
Because according to Francisco, it's a concern for the visitor when they come, because the visitor notices everything that's taking place.
It's a concern for me.
As a health officer, environmentalist.
It's a hazard.
Absolutely.
It's a hazard in the environment. It, as you say, you have implication for vector control. So you bring mosquito, it have a skip right have it for rat.
Because
it's unsightly.
Absolutely, because I'm trying to wonder. There are so many around the city, and nothing seems to be done about it. But if there's an act, I think we need to encourage, at least the people that are responsible for that. Step up, yes. Yes, step up, man.
If got everybody is in and they're far away and they don't do their work.
Well, that's why we are going to sensitize the nation as to getting ourselves. Firstly, I think an educational program should be held to make people aware.
They have years of education on that.
So we need to refresh. We need to refresh, because some of these roadside mechanics is taking advantage of this.
Yeah. It's like ongoing education, because the Elite Act was passed in 1990.
1990. So we seem to really need to have a special campaign on this.
24 years. So we seriously need to get serious in that country and do the work that needs to be done.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Some people do their work, they do their work.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. Because it's unsightly and it's a concern, and I think I'll talk to a few other journalists so that we can start to sensitize the people about this. Let's take in a few more callers because we have to go to our Creole African Research Project. Good morning to you, Creole Heartbeat. Creole Heartbeat, good morning.
Wadix, good morning. How are you, Prince Charming?
I'm fine, my dear. What about you?
I just holding on. I home still. By my brother about them old vehicles on the sidewalk. Right, Peter Prosper. All was talking about that and Oprah.
Yes.
Right, it's time for them to do so. My boy, and look, come in and talk about it, and the other people. My brother, you see along by River Street, is a disgrace and everything. Sometimes a transport coming, you don't know where to go on the sidewalk. My brother, all around Rosso, upper lane, right up. My brother, is a shame and a disgrace. So they must do something. The law they have there, use the law. Don't make the law just slip like a sleeping beauty, my boy, and back up. Prince Charming is not anything bad, I say. I don't know if they can get in touch with the mayor of Roseau and talk to the mayor, talk to the PAL reps, the PAL reps of Roseau. It's not about politics. It's about ideas. It is. Because every time I push my point, I push a good point, my brother. So we can talk to the mayor and other people that in charge of the city, the garbage and whatever it is. You understand? Let the city be clean, my brother.
I agree with you 100%, my dear.
Thank you very much. God bless you. Have a nice weekend, Prince Charming.
Boom! That's Marlon. Very important because, like we just said, we're going to take the call in a while. Call on a while, caller. This is important, Tinku. This is extremely, extremely important, and it's a concern, and a concern for the visitor. Also, a health hazard for us who actually live in Dominica. Let's take another caller, Creole Heartbeat. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. What do you do?
Sagavet. Yes, I.
Okay. You have a brother in
Yeah, we have Francisco Tinko Esprit, and he is also a member. As a matter of fact, he's a former president of the Combined Taxi Association, and I was just asking him questions as to some of the feedbacks the tourists are giving from the experience of the stores. And he said one of the eyesores or one of the concerns they have are the derelict vehicles around the city. And we are just learning there is a special litter act that was implemented in 1990. So somewhere along the line, we are dropping the ball.
Okay, my brother, we are dropping the ball big time. And I want to say it's also an eyesore for me because I am one of those persons. I love this country and I love the nature part of this country. And if we're promoting nature isle, what I am seeing is very unacceptable. And I'm saying that with unacceptable with the full meaning of unacceptability because I drive around this place. I love river, I love sea. That's my life, especially on weekends. And I travel. Sometimes I go looking for river spots in all parts of the country. And Walix, and your friend in the studio, during, let's say 2 weeks ago, I drove from Roseau to Marigot, from Marigot back to Portsmouth. And this thing is an eyesore all over the island.
Wow.
And while driving, the things I saw is very appalling. And what we hear in there from the past environmental officer, who was in here, it tells me that there is dereliction of duty in all these areas for the people that are responsible, or the offices or the institutions that are responsible for that.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that we cannot strip it aside. It's an eyesore. And it tantamount to garbage because it is not something that is pretty. It hinders traffic in certain areas. It builds in terms of rodents.
Yeah.
It builds up the whole. You have plenty of rats and cockroaches and mosquitoes.
Yes.
Because these are all the problems that we have in the environment, and that is the reason we have all these large infestations of all these different things. Yeah. And then you don't have the controlled the controlling factor where you control these things. You're not getting the spraying of mosquitoes and what's going on around the or year-round, or to say, well, when there's a rainy season, you come and you spray. Just with these 2 showers of rain, the mosquito infestation has increased.
Yeah.
And these are the things that I'm seeing. Now, there's another point I want to make, and that has been going on for too long. When you reach 1 mile Portsmouth, where they compress all the rubbish after Maria, it is still there today.
Yeah. I've noticed it, yeah.
Bro, I'm telling you, I travel around this country, and I'm telling you, that is something that I think some guy, Trevor, or somebody got some awareness to it, maybe about 6-8 months after Maria, and they said it was going to be badged out of Dominica. Yeah. Right now, Vine has grown over it and making it almost like it's a natural aesthetic of the country. It is garbage.
Yeah.
And we need to deal with it. It is appalling. It is a shame, a crying shame. And it's direction of duty to know that there's an act in place and nothing has been done.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much. This doesn't dog us well for, especially we call ourselves the nature island of the world. Let's take in a final call because we have to switch gears to our special Creole African research. Creole Heartbeat on Dominica, the outlook, what's taking place, some of the concerns of the tourists. We are here with Francisco Tinko Esprit, a former president of the Combined Taxi Association, and he gave us the feedbacks that some of the, as a matter of fact, a lot of the tourists, when they come to Dominica, it's an eyesore to see several of those derelict vehicles around the city. Good morning to you, Creole Heartbeat. Yes, time. Ça qui fait pour nous. Tout crédit ou fini alors? Crédit ou fini? À nous pour dernier là. Bonjour tout le monde. Bonjour. Ça qui fait bonjour. Creole Heartbeat.
Leroy, good afternoon, Leroy.
Good morning to you, Emil.
Francisco Esprit.
That's Emil.
Yes, man.
You should know Emil.
Yes, definitely.
Fabian. Yes, I.
I really think what that issue is been out there too long.
Yes,
man.
Man.
We shouldn't be talking about it right now. It's too much. And I think it's just totally ridiculous that people should be talking about that right now. These are things, and as one caller, you have legislation put in place to take care of that.
Well, not just a caller, he's a former environmental specialist.
Exactly. I've been gone, and somebody knows about the whole thing, But Leroy, could you permit me to go back to something that you guys spoke about last week?
No problem. We are here, and Tinko is here, and let's go with it.
Yes. About let's put it in the political realm, when when Alliance was formed.
The Alliance movement.
And Tinko, yeah, man, Dominican Liberation Movement.
Yeah.
What you find at that time, okay, it was mostly the young people, the youth that rally around that party, And what you find was happening that we used to have so much more from our parents. They used to call us Castro. They didn't understand what the movement was all about. It was all about people. I can remember people like Dr. Damian Dublin, Joe Reed, Skew, Addison Esprit, not Calvin,
Sobers.
Esprit. Yes, Ashwood Simon, may his soul rest in peace.
Oh, yes, we have to send our condolences to the family of Ashwood Simon. That's Brown, a real Creole cultural activist in Maho.
Yes, man, and our headquarters was, I think we never had a house in Mount Georgian, a little house. That's where our headquarters was. And these older guys, they were young, but we were younger than them, and they took us under their arms and they teach us as to what the movement is all about. Some of us couldn't even vote yet, and we support the movement fully. Now, why I'm saying that is, what happens now? It's like you just find young people like zombies right now. They pay no attention to what's happening in their country. Nothing at all. So maybe Tinko can answer the question as to what happened to the young people right now. Why they're not paying any interest when in 79, 78, 79, I think the LM first election was 1980, right, Tinkoy?
Yes, it was.
1980. Yeah. And we couldn't vote at that time. And people like me crossed the bounty, a young guys, young people, Martinez. I said young. That's why. What is that? That's why we learn about Che, the main revolutionist and the main guy.
In the Cuban Revolution, yeah.
Yeah, man.
The Cuban Revolution.
We learn about Mr. because we had our headquarters in Montreal, Prince Orchard and everything. What happened to the young people right now? That they just seem to be so passive and do not care about what happened to their country. Probably Tinko can answer that for me. Yeah. Have a nice day, guys.
Okay, thank you very much, Tinko. You heard the caller.
I'm going to attempt to answer your question. The times now is different than it was before. We had a precursor to our movement. So we had Leblanc. You know, Leblanc declared the shirt jack the national dress for men. And in the time he did that in the early 70s, that was a big thing internationally. The only other people that were wearing that at national dress was Tanzania, if Julius Nyerere and Mao Zedong and so on that used to wear that. Everybody was supposed to wear jacket and tie. So he allowed it, made it right for parliamentarians to go to the House of Assembly with shirt jack. And among other things that he did was the land distribution and movement to statehood and so on, associated state with different levels of our politics and up to the time he left. But we didn't realize that at the time he was leaving, it was a major sacrifice. He was passing the weight on to us. If I know what we do, what I know now, then I knew what I know now, we would have made the revolution in the 70s. We would have made it. That was easy. We didn't know our history. We didn't know about the Maroons. We knew very little about the Maroons. And we didn't know much about history, why Dominica was as it is. But we knew something was wrong. We were basically black nationalists. We started the black nationalism. We recognized that there was a weakness in the black nationalist analysis. And then some of us, including myself, moved over to reading Marxism-Leninism. With Marxist-Leninists, you can understand the situation in the country. And you don't have to be a Marxist-Leninist. You use it to analyze. So you get a true picture of what is happening in the economy. For example, in Maho, this Philip Nassif, DCP, we had major debates on the issue of the workers' rights and at that time, and what should be happening. A lot of young persons were working, and they were part of the same group that he spoke about, the Maho Work Study Group, and they work it at DCP. I say, if you do anything at DCP and you lose your job, I cannot give you a job. You have to follow the rules of the company. So guys were going to work. The back pocket is a copy of the Grandma magazine, right? Go to work by DCP and Nassif. No, you know what the name they used to call Nassif? You know what name the workers used to call him in those days?
No, tell us.
Cacas.
Cacas.
The worker's name was Cacas. And Cacas come from Castro. Because they check he's a hard fella, but he was disciplined and so on. But apart from that, we never worried about him. He never fired anybody for following Marxist or reading black nationalist magazines or newspapers. And you do your work, And I'm sure some of his top management must have been eager to fire people there, but he never did that. So we had a good social relationship. We just debated a lot in the community. But focusing on the youth, but that was the youth active. So we had Leblanc, then we had the MND movement. So we had persons devoted their life, from getting involved in MND means you could no longer become part of the society in terms of working in government or getting any jobs with the leading firms in the country.
You were seen as outcast.
Yes, we carried.
You were seen as communists. You were seen as outcast.
Just taking, you communist.
And mainly because of your political ideology.
Yes, because you were questioning the thing at the time. but we keep on going. So we had that whole MND movement, and I saw an article here by Gregory Shillingford in the 1972 publication of the DGS magazine about the MND. Now, you're not going to get that today you're not going to get somebody, the DGS magazine this year, accepting that kind of language. So our times was different from now. And we had another, you mentioned about the parents and their relationship with their children, with the young people that were involved in the movement. But there were a group of us where our parents were very supportive. So we'd go to Grand Bay, and Pierre Charles's mother would cook, and all of us would get food. And we'd go pass by Manjan Dublin, Dr. Dublin's, this is his mother. And we would
same thing.
We would debate. She would ask questions. How are you doing that? How are you not? Where are you going with that?
But then think there was a different
my
kind
mother
of
was different. Imagine we go to Atkinson and go into the shop by Abophil Rabes, as Gregory Rabes, his father, and his mother, and then we'd have discussions there. And Gregory Rabes contested the election against his father,
living in his father's house. Gordon Henderson brought that to my attention.
Yes, but that wasn't an issue for us.
Gregory was living at his parents' home, and he contested for the alliance against his father, and he was living at his father's home.
Yes.
But then it wasn't an issue.
It was an ideological
debate.
We debated the issue.
Ideology.
So we say who won, but it wasn't a personal issue.
Yes, like today. Today it seems to be more personal.
Today it's no. Yes, it becomes more personal because it is not going to the higher level. People thinking about individuals and things and so on, and not going to the higher level of ideas. But at the time, we had a lot of discussion on ideas. So
the consciousness was totally different.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to our Creole thing, because that is yes. Yeah. Africa.
Okay, let's
Creole research. You are presently undertaking this massive and, to my mind, historic project. First of all, tell us about it, and what inspired you to decide to.
Oh, we have a few minutes. We'll just basically touch on it. We are a Creole-speaking people. I grew up in a home where my father and mother spoke Creole a lot. I grew up with a grandmother who spoke 90% Creole when we spent time with her. And so Creole was accepted. We just could not speak it. We were not allowed to speak Creole to a person that can understand English. That was it. Anybody that could understand English, you use English, whether it's a child, whether it's an adult. So the Creole language was always there. So I grew up in Norway. And coming back to the research, Norway is not Norway in Europe. Norway is an African word meaning wet. And Norway really grew out of the Maroon, the Negmaron people that were living in the area. Because you have to understand the land distribution in Dominica. All what we do in there now, you have to understand the land distribution, to understand the language development. So if you left Maho, you lived on the coast, you refused to work on the estates after after slavery ended, the only place you could go to plant food was Norway. No estates, and all the estates were contiguous in that each one was adjoined into each other. So you had Belfast Estate, touching with Shire Estate, touching with Pichot, with Pina, with Sultan Estate, with Brantridge Estate, Riversdale Estate, Jaco Estate, and then you had two other estates of the valley which were bought. One was bought by J.B. Childs in those days and Amo. Beyond that, you go to Fonchou to plant food for your family. No estate. Both Sejour, none of them allowed anybody to work on the land. One estate. That is where a culture developed in the interior of the island, having to do with the language. Then comes the Norway Road projects. So as a boy, I grew up at the Norway Road. But one time, my father was one of the two shops in the Norway dealing with, well, on the road, the second Norway 2, the second Norway road project was built. So you had people from all over the island, a lot of people from Grand Bay, Petit Soufriere, Saint-Sauveur were working in that. From the Carib, Kalinago territory, were there people from Maho, St. Joseph. And I spent a lot of time in the shop. And I heard a lot of Creole. And as a very young boy, I listened to a lot of things. And that was one of the things
inspirations.
Okay, we're coming back closer now. You have the work that Keck has been doing over years.
Over 40 years.
A long time, and they're doing that voluntarily.
Yeah.
And we need to give some support to Keck.
Yeah.
Otherwise, in 10 years' time, we will not be able to bring back the language.
I agree.
They need to complete the dictionary, and you need resources to do that. We cannot be, for example, I just thought recently, we give somebody to go and study a degree at a university, a scholarship for $200,000. And every year the government gives how many and pay the schooling for them. But you have people working voluntarily for 15, 20, 30 years on a dictionary that we believe is very important for our history and our culture. We have to do better than that. So I want to compliment the work that the Tech has been doing. And then
presently there's a book that was released recently online, and I think it should be available at Jay's bookstore. Ano Apan Creole.
Yeah,
basically a guide to teaching Creole, so kind of self-taught book which could be used as school material, at certain levels, at least between the first stage of school life until, let's say, primary. When you reach primary school. But then the most important thing is there is that literature, there's that documentation available.
Yes.
And will be available at Jay's bookstore for sale, where you can actually learn to speak the language, which is critically important to production from Keck also.
Yes, that's very good. They have done a number of publications over the years. Then, well, I have been very much supported by Gregory Rabes. We've been buddies from SMA days. So
and into the liberation movement.
And then we were SMA and the struggles there and liberation movement and our annual seminar. They've been coming home for the last 30 years, every year.
Yeah.
Okay, the language.
Yeah.
So I said, but he's going to ask me how long I've been doing that. And I said, but I don't know. So I went into my library and I took out a document. And
language guide. That's a document
called
language guide.
Language guide to Asante Twi version language in Ghana. And I visited Ghana in 1994. And one of my 5 objectives was to get dictionary of the languages in Ghana, English language dictionaries. And this is, I went to a bookstore, and that was the only document I got 2 different documents. So it means I know I was doing that before 94. And essentially we say, how old is the Creole language? How old is the Creole language, Alex?
I would guess from slavery. From slave plantations to now.
Slave plantations. Yes. Okay. The Creole language goes back to the early days of colonialization in the Caribbean. The Portuguese, Ottoman Empire stopped the Europeans from trading in spices from Asia across their land to go to Europe. They decided to look for a way around that. So that is how Columbus went. He was looking for a way to the east. Vasco da Gama headed south. So you have some Portuguese went across South America and reached the East African coast. And the Portuguese set up camps, trading posts. And one of the important trading posts that they established was on the island of Mozambique. Today, all the land is now called Mozambique, but in those days, only an island was called Mozambique. So they have one of those, they set up a fort there, which was still one of the oldest forts that has been established. It's now a World Heritage Site. It's the fort of San Sebastian. And they also set up forts along the coast of India. They had Portuguese India,
Yeah.
And Goa was one important port. And that Goa was not given back to India until 1961. Wow. It remained Portuguese until that time. So they were trading in goods, ivory, gold, cloth from African coast to India, and increasingly slaves from the eastern coast to Brazil. And they controlled that area of trade for a long time. They were moving slaves from that time. When they were getting those enslaved persons, they were enslaving them from up the Shire Valley. The Shire River is a river that comes from Lake Nyasa, which is Lake Malawi today, and down southwards, passing through Mozambique to the sea. We know it's 1658. Out of the enslaved people that were brought to Brazil, 500 French peasants, owners, and 300 enslaved persons were brought from Brazil to Guadeloupe to set up the sugar plantation. And that is where, and between that period of time of 1658, by 1671, there were 58,000 Africans enslaved by these people in Guadeloupe.
68,000.
58,000 by 1671. Now, we also know from what we have in history is that most of our enslaved persons came from Guadeloupe and Martinique. So the Creole language was developed. Remember, it was the French peasants from poor areas of France that settled in Guadeloupe and Martinique. They were not going back and forth to France. Unlike the British persons, the British were absentee landowners. They were bought land in Dominica and they were living in England and they had an overseer. This was different from the French. The Waterland was for peasant farmers and they had small number of slaves each, maybe 2 slaves. Some of them only had 1 slave, 1 enslaved person. That is how the language was able to develop, because these people had to communicate. No, we had a massive movement. Most of the Africans who were brought here came from West Africa. So we looked at the east section of Malawi, Mozambique, Tanzania, Uganda, along that valley there, the Lake Nyasa, very significant. And then we come to the west side, you have Ghana, Nigeria, Congo, Cameroon, the Senegambia region, and so on. These were areas where the bulk of our enslaved persons come from. And when we looked at the list at the time the British were paying their own for giving up the slaves, we see the names, a lot of Igbo on those lists. So from the French countries, Dominica was colonized. So the Europeans couldn't defeat the Kalinagos. And when they cannot defeat the Kalinagos, when they cannot defeat the people, they make contracts. and they make contracts which they know they're going to break. And they just use it as a step, a timing to prepare for the next attack. So they had contracts with the Kalinagos saying that Dominica should remain free, remain for the Kalinago people. But then they broke that. So the French were gradually bringing in persons, first on the given the reason that they were interested in getting wood for their industries, and then eventually they set up significant communities along the coast. So you had Coliho being a major community of French presence. Coliho Dublin was very early a significant area, Point Michel and Soufriere as well. You had other locations, but these areas on Roseau were very significantly developed in their time. And if you look at the structure of the parishes of Dominica, these are the smallest parishes. They were so well organized and populated for their time that they were only a small area was allocated as a parish. So Point Michel is the only village in the parish of Saint Luke, right?
Yeah.
And there are only 2 villages in this parish of Saint Mark.
Soufriere Scott said.
Yes, and Saint Peter is just 3, Dublin, Bios, Coliho.
And
So
then Roseau, St. George's.
And Roseau. So Roseau was a little bit more complicated. But okay, so these people move across, and they were communicating. So there was no English, there was no official French government. They were trading on their own. They were doing their own thing, exporting, doing their illegal things in terms of moving from island to island, and that is one of the reasons for the development of the Creole language as it is. Why our language is very closely related to French. Well, what is called the Antilles Creole, which is French, Guadeloupe, Martinique, and Saint Lucia. Now, Saint Lucia have more French influence than us.
Why?
Because 1763, the British came in, but the British didn't come into Saint Lucia until 18 something. So they had another 40 years of French rule before the British came in. So there was a lot of French influence in their language over time than us. So we have more an African component in the Creole language. Okay. So from the East Africa now, so here it is, I decided, so apart from going to Ghana, I visited Ghana as well, and I went to the Gambia. So 2 countries in Africa. Whilst in Ghana,
so mainly our let's say our forefathers, it can be said that we were basically from Ghana. Our forefathers were from Ghana.
Well, no, it's not one. Remember, they were
different places.
Places. It's not Ghana. You are talking about the whole West Africa.
Okay.
Because we get languages from Senegal to Wolof, right down the coast to Guinea-Bissau, Togo, Nigeria, all the islands, all the places, Ivory Coast, the different languages there. We have aspects of that in the Creole.
All right.
So you have it right through to the Congo, to the Congo. So the whole
all these areas, different areas from Africa,
so I have
found, came to Dominica.
All came to Dominica. And
they brought the African language with them.
They brought it. And they had to communicate. And what happened following that? Well, my deep interest in that level of understanding the African influence in the Creole language was when I came across the word Kaka.
Kaka.
So I say Kaka is African. So I accepted that as African in all my working. And then I saw somewhere that, no, it's not African at all. It's French word that comes from the Latin word kakare. I say, what? So we're not sure what we're doing then. We're not sure what we are saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then I come across the word mourn. Mon meaning a hill or a mountain.
Yes.
I said, no, Mon is French.
Mm-hmm.
And I did the research in Mon, and the French never used Mon until 17 something. So I traced back a number of dictionaries. The Boyer's Dictionary, for example, they were putting an edition out every other year. And the first year it entered the dictionary as a French word, the definition states a word used by the Antilles to refer to a mountain or a hill. So at that time, the Creole language was already putting words into the French language. So right away, I realized I was wrong. So I was wrong on the Kaka side, and I'm wrong again on the Mon side. So that showed me, well, no, somebody needs to do something. So I delved deeper into it, and then I decided to start with obvious languages that we knew for West Africa. But I didn't believe East Africa would have so many. And only to find out that in Malawi, the language in Malawi is either what you call it, Nyanja or Mananga language. It's spoken by the Chewa people, is the language in my limited research that has the highest number of possible influences on the Creole language. And next to that, to that language on the East African side is Swahili. Then we also have the Yao. The Yao people who live south of Malawi, in part of Malawi as well, but also to a significant extent in Mozambique. However, they were very active in moving from place to place. They were business people. They traded. They were a very important factor in the trading of Africans in the slave system. They also contributed to the Creole language. So we have a lot of influence from the different languages in Africa.
So the the composition of some of those words in your research, how would you know exactly from which influence or from which area of Africa that they were influenced?
Okay, so what I did, I decided to get some dictionaries, and I did not accept any dictionary. I searched for the oldest English dictionary I could get on the language. So if there was a dictionary written in 1760 or something like that, then I would go for that, because that would give you you closer to the formation time of the language, because language is dynamic, it changes
with time.
With time. And there was another factor I should mention that helped me with the Creole language. When I did a little work on English, and then I read, there are only about 15% of the words in English have their origin in English. 30% is French, 30% is Latin. How many percent is Indian? I say, what? We don't want no other word to enter the Creole language. If somebody say you are interviewing somebody and they say one word that is not acceptable Creole, we laugh at them and say it's not Creole. But look at the English. Every month, how many words enter the Creole language, the English language? But that's another factor I looked at as well. But in terms of so I got these dictionaries and I started going through them. And,
can you give us some examples?
Sure. I can give you some examples of that.
We are here with Francisco Tinko Esprit, and he has done quite a bit of work in terms of the research of the origin of the Creole language, the African Creole element. As a matter of fact, he has done a research project. It is continuing, and very important information. Some of those I'm hearing for the very first time as we try to really educate the nation on its history. Yes, Tinko.
Okay, well, Alex, I'm going to just briefly mention certain things there.
Yeah.
what I noticed by looking at these words from the African perspective is that we have tried to anglicize the Creole. So we have words like Bamsi. Bamsi is an African word, having the same meaning as we say as we have it in English. I forgot the English word, but actually it's a Creole word. We have Barracoon. Barracoon is said to be a Portuguese word from Barracoa, but it is a clear word in one of the African languages, Ni Barracoon, which means to enslave people.
Wow.
So, well, my research is there's nothing definite about it. It's just that there are possibilities. So that has to be taken by somebody else and do the actual work. You might have to go to those countries, work with linguists from these countries, and they might have better examples. So it's just a beginning research. Norway, I mentioned the Norway one, for example. Soda. Soda is a bread, is an African word in one of the languages for a bread. So the soda is you go and buy a piece of soda and so on. It's African. Soup. Soup.
Oh, soup.
You say, Momu, you're on soup. It has nothing to do with soup you're drinking.
Wow.
Soup is a word that means very wet. You know, it's an African word. And as well as the word so-so. So we tend to anglicize that and say so-so comes from the word so and so. No, there's a word, African word for so-so. French as well, we have a lot of words that we believe is French, but it's very likely that they're not French at all. So we use the word diwisho. Diwisho in the nursery, in the rhyme.
Yes.
Diwisho, all fall down, right? And diwisho is a word, is a game, a children's game in one of the African countries.
Wow.
Yes.
So Diwisho is a game in one of the African.
Yeah,
wow.
Diwisho is
you know, I thought at some point in time it was
it's not
hot rice.
Hot rice at all.
Hot rice. Diwi.
No, it's not hot rice.
Hot rice.
So it's to keep fit. The issue is a Wolof word. So Wolof is from the Senegal Gambia area.
Senegal.
And it means to keep fit.
To keep fit.
To keep fit.
I guess maybe in the whole recitation aspect, Diwisho.
We lose the African, and we just, because of the English influence, we assume it's either a French word or English, because we do not know the African words. So we know that came from studying French in school and English in school. Look into the French and the English languages for the root of those words.
But the root is real African.
We can look at Kasse, for example.
Kasse. Like brick.
Yeah. So we say Kasse,
which means to break.
To break. But that is the French.
Yeah.
That is the French. Kasse is to break in French. It's also to break in Ibani, Mandinka language. It means to break. Hosta as well in Yao language. It also means to break.
So we can safely say
the
origin of Kasse, which is French, came from Africa in those places.
Yes, but it also come from French because Kasse is to break in French.
In French, yeah.
Okay, that is one meaning of Kasse, but we have a number of meanings of Kasse. So when we say Kasse $20, what do you mean by Kasse $20?
To break or to
we translate it down. Means to break.
To break down.
Break is not to break at all. It's to put it in
smaller. Break it down in smaller amounts.
That is a Hausa word meaning to divide into small.
Yes, basically, yeah.
Divide into small portions. We grew up hearing about Penkasse.
Yes.
Penkasse have nothing to do with breaking the two-piece bread. It doesn't breaking. Kassa is a small bread.
Kassa is a small bread.
It's the baking of small bread in the Ga language.
That is kassa.
So it's very likely that the Penkase comes from that word.
Yeah.
You have other things, uses of casa. Kase. Kase hot travail. Huh? Somebody
Kase, fire the person. Kase, yeah, mo kase.
That's Yoruba, straight Yoruba.
Yoruba.
To terminate, to come to an end. That's
Wow.
the meaning of in Yoruba language.
Wow.
Yeah, Kase.
Wow. That's pretty interesting.
Kase tash. You have Kase tash. So if you have a group of friends liming together and then one person want to escape, somebody might say, someone got Kase tash.
Yeah.
He's leaving the
group.
He's leaving the group. So that has its meaning in the wall of language as well. Then you have Kase having to do with hearing.
Yeah.
Garçon Kase is away, man.
Yeah.
There you're talking too loud. So people say Kase is away. That have nothing to do with breaking ears.
Yeah.
Kase is in Bakale language a sharp scolding voice. So you see, you have a number of meaning for that same word. And then you have as well the Kase coming from Malkase,
Malkase, yeah.
That Kase.
Badly brought up.
Badly brought up. And that Kase is a Ga word. Kase means politeness and gentleness.
So you add the mal to it.
You get the sense. It has nothing to do with your badly broken. No, it's not that you're badly broken. No. You're just impolite person. Well, these are just a few of the. I can't say to learn. Another form of Ga language where to learn. So you training an animal, for example. A wild animal, you take it and you try to tame it. I can't say that.
Yeah. Like you break down, you break it in this time. You break it in.
So you have a number of, so these are some of the examples that we have. I can share with you. Okay, so we're looking at that. So the French words, there was an interesting one. Have you ever heard the Creole word kole kwasha?
Kole kwasha. Well, kwasha is to spit or spit kole kwasha. No, I've never heard of that.
You're looking at French. You're looking at the French. You're taking a French approach. There was a guy, but a truck driver. His name was Jones. Used to call him Super. He was my neighbor in Montjorgen years ago. He used to run the Norway route for my boy. That is my boy truck. He used to pass home in the evening and buy ice. So he always had a problem when he's going up. Oh, say, can you take kole kwasha and so on. Guys sitting down by the roadside and so on. So everybody else assume kole kwasha means kole kwasha. And from the kole kwasha.
Yeah.
And then I come across in the Ga language, kwasha is foolish or fool.
Kwasha is foolish.
Yes. The same Ga language, Kolo is a foolish person. That cannot be coincidence.
Yes. So kole kwasha is a foolish person.
A fool.
It's like a foolish fool. A foolish fool. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one, yes. So and then you have words like kobos.
Kobos.
Kobos means in I-10 language is to borrow or to lend. So we can extrapolate there and see where that word is coming from.
Will you have this documented in a form where you'll be able to teach the whole metamorphosis, the genesis of the whole Creole language? Because I'm using this particular program as a template. We possibly can use it and see how we can maybe document some of this and assist. But would you have, let's say, a book released about this at some point in time?
Yes, I'm working on a document that will be able to share, because people need to have it to work.
Yes.
Because it means that we assume we are losing the language, because we are losing the root of the language, and we're losing some of the meanings because we
so you give Creole the way it is and the way it is spoken or not spoken 10 more years before we start to really.
No, we're going to lose it because
if we don't do something about it, yeah.
And you're going to hear people can communicate in the language, simple things. Mole toapin, anualela. That's it. But they will not be able to do any serious discussion. Not because the words are not there, but we've lost the words that are not very much used. Except
this is serious. This is serious business.
So we need to move. We need the dictionary. For example, a lot of the work I do, I have to relate to the St. Lucian. The St. Lucian Creole Dictionary is available online.
Yes.
Free. So and I use that quite a bit.
Yeah. And then the one that Keck is working on or revising is still in process. But Tinko, it's time for the major news again. Man, I tell you, you are so you're like an encyclopedia, so filled with so much information that we have to see how we could delve into this even more, because I believe it's something that we should have a special program on, especially for longevity, as we continue to preserve the Creole language, knowing the whole metamorphosis, the whole genesis of these things, give you a better understanding and even a better appreciation for the language. Once again, I really want to thank you for taking these 2 hours off your program, 2 Fridays off, to come and share some of those vital information. I myself, today was an entire learning lesson, a lesson for me in the whole African connection with the Creole language. I really want to thank you, my brother. Yes. Final words before you leave?
Yes. Okay. I wish to thank all our listeners and viewers for being attentive to the session that we did, and continue to work on the program and do whatever I can. But it's available. If I can assist in any way, I do. I'm not sure I can complete a document myself, but it means somebody will have to take it from there. But I'm making it possible that it can be taken by anybody. I have put it in a form that it can be developed.
Thank you very much, Francisco Tinko. This was another Creole Heartbeat program. I'm Leroy Wadix Charles. The news major comes up next on the big station Q95 FM. Take it easy until next week, God willing. May God bless you, and may God bless Dominica. Continue to enjoy the weekend.
Yes, sir.